It's a pleasure to be here. It's early in the morning, I know. You have already been working hard. That's why you can relax a little bit. But you're going to hear now, in the coming, let's say, 1 hour it's about what we can do with microelectronics. In the course you're learning how to make the devices and how to calculate them. I try to explain to you what can you do with them. Why is microelectronics so exciting? And why is it really impacting the society and even your everyday life? Now, on this topic, I could speak for the rest of the day. It's a very broad topic. That's why I've been selecting some typical examples coming out of different areas, different fields. I'm not going into details about the technology behind it, so don't worry. It should be easy to follow. And it should be enjoyable even. I've tried to make it enjoyable. Whether I will succeed, we'll find out around 9 o'clock, of course. Well, if you look at microelectronics, and I'm referring to microelectronics in the very broad content. When I speak about microelectronics, I speak about transistors, about sensors, about all different types of, call it electronic devices. If you look at the evolution over time, then in the 70s, aerospace was dominating what was happening in the development of microelectronics. And we were speaking about a few thousand devices, not much. Then the mainframe computers became important, IBM. They were never believing that computing would be a breakthrough. Huh? The people who have been working on those computers were only believing that in the world 3 to 4 computers would be needed. Then if we go to the 90s, the personal computer became important, and we are speaking already about 350 million devices. Then, of course, a cellular phone with 1.8 billion. Smart computing, we are going over to 10 billion. And now we are at Internet of Things. And I will explain that. Internet of Things is connecting everything. Not only connecting people, because we are doing that already a long time. You're doing that with your PC. You're doing that with your smartphone, connecting people. But now we are going to connect things. And not only connect them, they will interact with each other without your interference. You don't know what they are doing with each other. The result should be in your benefit, of course. Now, this morning when I woke up, I looked at this slide. It was not included yesterday, but I said maybe I have to include it, because the transistor was invented exactly 70 years ago, 47, we are 2017. And then there was one single transistor, then they have been trying to put more transistors together to come to an integrated circuit. And you can use that for a large range of different applications. Everywhere you find microelectronic components. And of course, one area is to make the devices smaller and smaller. The geometries are becoming smaller and smaller. You get much more devices, transistors, on a small piece of silicon. You increase what we call the packing density, and you do that for 2 reasons. To increase the packing density, to increase the performance, because you want to have better and better devices. Every time you buy a new PC or a new smartphone or whatever, you want to have a better performing device. But not only better performing, you also want to do it at a lower cost. So buying a new computer is cheaper than repairing your older computer, and it's much more powerful. I mentioned that we are speaking about Internet of Things. That means that billion of wireless, everything has to happen wireless, otherwise it's not working. Wireless devices will communicate with each other, right? Like the laptop, smartphone, smartwatches. I will give an example of that. Smart glasses, and the Google glasses, they are not on the market. You can buy them. for about $5,000, but only for scientific purposes. It's not a tool, and you don't see people walking around with Google glasses. Lucky, because I don't like them. Huh? It's better to see the person in the eyes than through such an ugly type of glass. Drones, textiles, smart homes, smart cars. And I will pick out some of those examples to illustrate it. Not all of them. So that means technology is entering our everyday life. Now, that's a slide from IBM. You know, professors in Belgium don't have time to do that type of calculations. And they found that the number of rice grains grown every year, well, in Belgium we don't eat that much grain, so it's not, rice is not so popular, but I know in Brazil it's a good example. It's 1 quadrillion. So it's 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 zeros. That's the amount of grains grown every year. The amount of ants, I know, I don't like them, but crawling on the earth is 17 zeros. The devices produced every year, and I will repeat it when I speak about devices, it's all type of devices, transistors, sensors, whatever. It's 10 quintillion. That means that more than 1 billion devices for every one of us are manufactured per year. And you say that's impossible. No, it is possible. If you have time, probably you have time after the exams, you can do a calculation and look at the devices that you're using and think about the number of components in it. You'll be amazed. I don't think that you're using many tools, even at home, without some electronics in it. So 1 billion is an amazing number. Now you're going to find microelectronics everywhere, going from, of course, security, smart living, retail, gaming, of course, utilities, sports, automotives, environment monitoring, agriculture, consumer electronics, health, even in construction. Industry, now we speak about industry 4.0. That means that industry is becoming more and more automated. More automation means more electronics, more devices. So in the coming hour, I will pick out a few of those examples to give a feeling what type of devices are people using nowadays. This is the same that everywhere. Maybe there are some people looking at that and say, I don't understand that very clearly. An airplane, yes, you need electronics, otherwise you're going to fly. But there's a lady there with clothing. And you say, has that something to do with electronics? Yes. You can build sensors in the clothes. And the more chemical interaction between the people, the more they are going to light up. And you say, that's a crazy idea. Yes, but there's an American with a shop in New York on 5th Avenue selling that type of clothes already. So again, in the most important areas in our society, like health, mobility, and transport, security, energy, communication, education, everywhere you find electronics. Health, well, the doctor in your pocket. I will give an example of that. Mobility is obvious. The car that you're buying is full of electronics. Security, you cannot live without it. Energy, low power, that's the main problem. You're always complaining that your batteries are empty too quickly. So you have to do something to consume less power. Communication, of course, the smartphone, the iPhones, everything is there as an illustration, and also learning. So that means that innovation needs electronics. You cannot move in any of those areas without innovation. I'm not too well aware, in that case, of the Brazilian situation, but in Belgium, all the interaction with the city and with government It's nowadays done electronically. So if you want to fill in your text, you fill it in on your computer. You don't fill it in on paper anymore. What is indeed a problem, because there are a lot of older people, and it's very hard for older people to learn them how to work with a computer. But it's the only way to do that. If you want, I don't know, a new passport, in advance you have to fill in the data and send it, and then they will tell you when you can come to pick it up. So it's another way another way of living nowadays. Even in the medical world, the doctors have to do everything on computer, so that if you go to a clinic, maybe by an accident or whatever, that in the clinic they can find all the data about you, to be sure that they don't give you wrong medication or anything like that. The first idea is, yes, it's very good. Of course, there's always a drawback. There's what about security of your private data? Because only doctors can see it, but how sure are you that only the doctors will do it? I will give a few more examples later on. So technology in every aspect of our life. The commuting world is increasing. In the beginning, we have been connecting places, what you did with your computer. Then we have been connecting people, what you do with your smartphone and all your social interactions. And now we are going to connect things. And the amount of data being transferred over the world is enormous. That's one of the main problems. If you look at the cellular phones, there are more than 5 billion cellular phones on the market. An amazing number. But it's not only a cellular phone. You not only have to make it, because that was one of the problems. Number one in cellular phones was for a long, long time Nokia, company in Scandinavia. And they almost disappeared off the market. Now they are trying to come back. And the main reason is that they were not updating the innovations. And they were also not taking into account that it should be easy to use. Nobody wants to use something very complex. If you remember, probably with your grandparents, about 10, 15 years ago, if you wanted to switch on the television, they had a small box, they had 2 or 3 boxes with a lot of knobs on it. It was almost impossible to find out how to switch on the television. People found out that that is not the right way to go. You have to keep it simple as possible. And indeed, children are now playing with smartphones. And the fact that they can do it is demonstrating that it's a good system. I remember my son was 3 years old, and he was able to play on a Macintosh. Although he could not read anything on it, but he was able to play, and he knew how to switch on and how to go to the program he wanted to play with. That was already demonstrating that Apple was very easy to use. And now we can have a debate whether Apple is better than Samsung or so. I don't want to enter that debate, but you can think about that. I'm using an iPhone. Huh? No publicity. There's a real revolution in mobile communication. That was in the early days. There were soldiers who had to communicate with people on the other side of the line. Well, nowadays, you do it with your, sorry, it's Apple again. You do it with your smartphone. It's much more powerful, it's much more compact, and it's amazing what you can do. Last year I had a slide with a Samsung on it, but it was not a good time to put Samsung. It was not allowed to take them on the plane anymore due to the problems with their batteries. The battery was a little bit too large for the cellular phone and became too warm and gave the problems. Now if you look into a cellular phone, that's what you see inside. I'm not going to explain what's inside, but a huge amount of components. And I put in that slide to point out that the technology that you need for an iPhone or a smartphone is not always an up-to-date technology. Yes, you see here 28 nanometer. Maybe it doesn't say anything to you, but that is a very, very advanced technology. It's almost the best that you can get. Now people go down now to 22 and even the 10 nanometer is coming out, but that's advanced technology. That's the iPhone 5, sorry. That's why it's 28. But you also see older technologies. So that means you need a lot of different type of technologies to build one system. That means I also need special type of engineers to do it. Because only microelectronic engineers are not going to make that. They should be aware of different disciplines in order to combine all the different things together. Another application is, of course, in the house where you can have a lot of electronics. You come in, or before you come in, your smartphone is telling the devices in the house. That's an example of interacting without your interaction. When you're coming in an area close to your house, your smartphone will interact with the devices and will switch on the light, will on time open the door to park your car, will see that the right temperature is there. So everywhere you find here microelectronics. We call it the house of the future. Huh? The light is controlled by sensors in IMEC, the small laboratory in Belgium, doing similar work as here. There in the office, the lights are switching on automatically. You enter the room and then you're switching on. It's good, you save energy, but be careful. If you're sitting in the office and you're doing for 10 minutes nothing, not moving, the lights are switching off. So if you fall asleep, the lights are off. What's also good because if you're sleeping, you don't need lights. But you see many different areas where you can make use of electronic devices. Now the world is changing very fast. And there's a very nice sentence. I will read it for you because maybe it's too far away. Just because we can compute faster, that doesn't make us smarter, more creative, or alter our social perspectives. So it's not because we can do much more things, that is better. Your personal interaction has to be taken into account. And that means that social and technical revolutions are exponentially proportional to the rate at which humans exchange information. Exchange of information is very important, but very dangerous also. As a student, I can give you an example, maybe not good while a professor is sitting here, but many students are looking to solve a problem, they are looking at internet. You find everything on the internet. I'm sure that the small question, if you give me maybe half an hour, I will find it on the internet how to solve that question. And on one hand, it's very good, because you can look it up and you can say, okay, how did he do it? It's good if you do that step. If you don't do that and only look at the answer, it's a negative point. And many people are taking over information from internet without doing something on it. And I'm putting it on paper, putting it in a text, putting it in a thesis, and that's the negative side of it. Another example that if you have a discussion, you're sitting around the table and you're discussing about something, very often the people are not thinking anymore. They say, oh, you want to know? And they take their smartphone and they look up, they Google and say, oh yes, you know, that's your answer. It's a different way of communicating with each other. So we can discuss for a long time about the philosophy behind all those things. Very exciting, I like it.
It's hard to imagine a day without your computer, smartphone or tablet, and soon these devices will play an even bigger role without you noticing it. We're looking to connect the unconnected so that technology will seamlessly augment our daily lives. A busy working day ahead? Your alarm clock will wake you up on time for your first meeting of the day. Although there's a lot of traffic on the road, you won't be late. Your clock automatically checked your agenda and traffic updates. All relevant info is displayed on your smartphone or on the other screens in your house. The air quality and temperature will also be controlled automatically thanks to the continuous measurement of your environment and connection with your heating or ventilation. Yes, even your coffee machine is synced, so you'll have a fresh cup of coffee waiting for you in the kitchen. In the meantime, your car is ready in front of your house. It's already figured out what the fastest way to work is. And don't mind the house or the windows, they'll be locked automatically. The interaction between your car and the traffic infrastructure will allow complete autonomous driving. Just jump in the car and prepare your 9 a.m. meeting. And when you arrive at work, your car will connect to the parking meter to pay the parking fee. Technology will also monitor your health. Your smartwatch will constantly check your body parameters, such as your blood pressure and temperature. It will help you live healthier by calculating your energy consumption and by suggesting workouts that fit into your schedule. Your fridge will even suggest what to have for dinner. This Internet of Everything will also enable longer independent living for the elderly. Invisibly integrated sensors in the house, for example, will monitor their activity and automatically alert doctors and relatives when help is needed.
Okay, that's a positive point because I had a break now. It's very useful to put some movies in your presentation. But as an example of what you can do, and I will go deeper on it. But there are many challenges. For instance, power consumption. I mentioned already, power, batteries is one of the weak points. You have to work with devices consuming as low power as possible. And in many cases, you yourself have to generate the power, not a battery. For instance, the vibration, we're all moving and vibrating, that can be enough to power some of your devices. It's that type of approach that people are looking at. I mentioned already the huge amount of data which is going to the cloud. So the devices are detecting information, sending it to the cloud. There is something happening with it, computing, and then the data is going back to the devices to adjust the condition. That's the way it is happening. But you must be sure that you can protect the data, that not all the data is available to everybody. For instance, if you're driving in your car and there is a traffic problem, it's happening now and then in São Paulo, I noticed, that the information from the GPS is going to other GPS users. I think that's a good point, because then you do something to the traffic. But at the end, if the information where you're going to park your car, if that becomes public, that's not good. You can use GPS for the traffic situation. You can use GPS to look for a free parking space. That's also very important, very useful. Because otherwise you're driving around and you don't find parking. And that information, okay, but the last step, parking your car, that information should remain private. Because that's giving information about your habits. Interoperability, and I mentioned already, very easy of use. Now the number of devices, sensors, whatever, is growing exponentially. You see over the years, and those are different companies. So it's information from different companies like Intel, Bosch, Qualcomm, and that's all collected. And you see that we are now going, within the coming 10 years, we are speaking about trillion of devices that will be needed. And of course, that amount of devices also represent an economical impact. And here you see the translation of the number of devices into millions of dollars for different areas. Consumer like the smartphone, the TVs and things like that. Automotive, industrial applications and other. And you see that in all areas, there is an exponential increase. What is good, because that is a real economical value. Now, that's a very busy slide, and I'm only going to highlight one thing. There's the impact of some developments on the economical impact of the development of some new areas. Like, for instance, here, 3D printing. What will be the economical impact? Well, will be between 0.2 and 0.6 trillion dollars. But here, if you see Internet of Things, you see that the impact of Internet of Things by 2025 will be between 3 and 6 trillion dollars. It's a huge economical impact. And when I speak here about economical impact, it's not only the profit of selling the devices. It's also the amount of money that you can gain by using those devices. I will give you an example immediately about healthcare. Here, for instance, if you see for healthcare, that's Internet of Things, economical impact in different areas. And here, see in healthcare, it's estimated that we are going to save between 1 and 2.5 trillion dollars. So 1/3 of the economical value is coming already from healthcare applications. Small part profit on the devices, the systems that you're selling. A lot of profit on, for instance, the reduction in chronic diseases, the reduction in health security. That's one of the main problems in the world now, also in Europe. We had an excellent health security system, but no government can afford that anymore. It's becoming too expensive. So that means you have to do something to reduce that. When I see a healthcare system, for instance, in Europe, going to a doctor is almost for free. I pay about $3 if I go to a doctor. If I go to the clinic, I don't pay. It's a social system. We pay it indirectly via the taxes. It's not really for free. It's misleading because we pay a lot of taxes for it. But the problem is that, and I'm coming back on that in another slide, that the population is becoming older. That means the active population is a number of people working and paying taxes. That's only 1/3 of the population. The other 2/3 are either too old or too young. So that means it's very difficult for 1/3 of the population to do all the payment for the social system. So the impact will be very big. I mentioned already the amount of data, exabyte. I don't know, you should be an expert on that. For me, it's a magic number, is 21 zeros. That's a consumption of exabyte per month in data. And the major impact is, of course, coming from the mobile video. The mobile video, there you got the mobile audio, you got different applications. So we are using a huge amount of data every month. And you can analyze where are people using that. If you look here, of course, most of that is used in Asia. Asia, North America, Middle and East Europe, and here at the bottom you have Latin America. For the moment, consuming 7.3% of all the data per month. But that will strongly increase. And of course, you need all the different type of applications. But data hungry and power consuming. If you play with your apps, you know it, your battery is going down very, very quickly. And if you're not careful, you pay a lot at the end of the month because all the data that you have been downloading. A few examples. Agriculture. I think agriculture is a very, very important area. But the farmers need to produce more food to keep up in the next 50 years than what they've been producing over the last 10,000 years. We are for the moment with 7 billion people on Earth, around 7 billion. By 2050, it will be about 9 billion people. It's a huge amount of people, exploding. And especially if you think about China, where there is no longer the one-child policy, that has been lowering. Otherwise, we were already higher than the 7 billion. So the food production must increase by about 70%. It's enormous. And you can only do that by being more efficient. And of course, you have to take into account the ecological footprint. It's becoming more and more important. You cannot do what you want. You have to take that into account. So that means you have to do agriculture in a different way in the near future than you did in the past. And maybe you don't see that too much, but you can have normal cameras. In normal camera, you have the 3 different colors. You can build dedicated cameras where you can do an analysis over a very high number of spectral lines. You can go up to 100 spectral lines. In that way, you get a lot of information about the crops. And you can look at the evolution. One more. You can look at the evolution of the crops. You can see whether or not there is a disease. And you can do something to that. And that's a way to be more efficient. And of course, you can put that in a drone. And I don't have the slides with me, I forgot to bring them. I have nice examples of the use of drones in Brazil, where they are flying over a field, and due to the spectral analysis with the different bands, they can see the different qualities of the crops. Drones are very popular. You see them everywhere now. In Belgium, the police started to use drones. So, why do they want to use a drone? Well, very simple. If there's a car accident, also in Belgium we have sometimes car accidents, it takes a long time. The police have to come and they have to take note of the situation, and the road is blocked for, I don't know, 2 hours, if you're lucky. Now they take a drone, they fly over it, and everything is recorded within 15 seconds. 15 minutes. Within 15 minutes, everything is recorded, and they can move the cars, and traffic is going smoother. That's one example of drones. You can also use the devices with the spectral lines to see the evolution of the fruit. In a shop, you can even determine which of the fruits you have to sell very quickly. Like, for instance, this is expiring very soon, that will expire in 2 days, and based on that, you can modify the price of your fruits. If you put the price lower, more people will buy it, and by the end of the day, those type of fruits will be sold. Automotive, that's a very important area. This is a car, and there's a lot of electronics inside your car. For a medium class car, about 25% of the cost of the car is coming from the microelectronics in it. And if you buy the expensive, the high-end BMWs and Mercedes and that type of cars, is even much higher. And you need a lot of electronics in a car for different purposes. You need it to control your engine because you must be environment friendly. Your consumption must be low. A low consumption in a car must be done by electronic control, otherwise not working. You need electronics for your brakes. You also need electronics for information, your GPS, for instance. You need electronics for entertainment. You need electronics for interaction. For instance, the car is telling, at least my car is doing that, telling when the car needs maintenance. Go to maintenance, and you can go a step further. The car is making an appointment for you, when to bring in your car. So all that is requiring electronic devices, different type of electronic devices. And because you can imagine, if you have brakes here, and you need an electronic device, it's not a normal device, because the temperature near your brakes can go up to 400-500 degrees centigrade. So you need electronics that can work at high temperatures. Of course, you need it for smart mobility. You need a lot of sensors, and people are working on that. It's not always positive. Also in Belgium, they are working with what we call smart traffic lights. I don't think they are that smart, but it's a way to go. Of course, you need it for safety. You want to know when somebody is crossing the street. And you say, oh, that's not new, that's old. I have a car already with sensors. Yes, most likely based on infrared devices. It's very nice if the weather is good. But when it's very foggy, the infrared devices don't work. So if you drive your car in Beijing, it's foggy all the time. So that's why people are using now radar systems, high frequency type of devices that under all weather conditions, you can detect people moving. And you can even do analysis, and you know whether it is a person or an animal or whatever, or something immobile. So there are a lot of sensing devices around your car, starting from the parking device, that's one of them, where you have different ones. You have system based on cameras, you have other system based on sensors with making noise. More and more cars are parking automatically. Even the small, low-cost cars now coming on the market, like Citroën, Peugeot, to mention only two of them, that's already an option. So it's becoming a low-cost option. That's a very nice example, is a future image. You are driving here and you want to take over the truck, but there's a car. And you don't see it. If you would have a camera on the back of, a screen on the back of the truck, then you could easily see the car and avoid an accident. Traffic problems, you're well aware of the traffic problem. This is a picture, you don't see too clearly with the light, but that's from Shanghai, taken about 1 month ago. We see a lot of cars with all the problems. The way to solve that is autonomous driving. Is that going to solve the problem? Yes and no. Because here, whether you're driving or the car is driving is not solving a problem. There is a traffic jam anyhow. The only thing with autonomous driving is that you will be more relaxed. You can do whatever you want in the car. And there's a lot of work going on now on autonomous driving, with all the problems. There was a very nice, yes, I call it nice, example of a Tesla car a couple of months ago in November last year, where there was hacking of the software, and at the moment the person was not driving the car anymore, but the hacker was driving the car. And he did it on purpose to demonstrate that you have to be very, very careful. Because other people can take over control of your car. And there are also philosophical questions, and you can think about that. I'm not going to give you the answer. But if the car is driving, and at the moment, the car got two possibilities. Either hitting another car, and you can be hurt, or hitting a person who may be killed. How is the car going to decide what to do? We need sensors for monitoring the quality of the air. There are many sensors in Belgium. There's a city, Antwerp, nice city because I was born there, where they installed for the moment about 5,000 sensors to monitor automatically the air at different points. It's the beginning of what we call going over to smart cities. Smart cities have many, many different aspects. And there's a lot of funding from the government in different countries going on to come to smart cities. Of course, you need radars, smart radios. That means you have to do communication. But you can imagine, if a huge amount of people are communicating data at the same time, that will give a problem. Therefore, your device has to select the bandwidth. And the bandwidth can change every hour. Your device automatically has to select the bandwidth where it's easy to transmit all the data. Healthcare. By 2030, about 1 billion people will be older than 65. And here you see an evolution. It was up to 2010. People younger than 5 years old, older than 65. And that is the evolution. And that's a problem. That's a problem in Europe. It's a problem in China. Enormous problem. Of course, with the one-child policy. Brazil don't have that problem. And that's one of your strong points. Brazil got a rather young population. And you need, as I mentioned already earlier, you need the young people because they have to work and they have to generate the taxes to sustain your systems. In Europe, it's a real problem. Also in Asia. In Japan, for instance, in every park there was a small playground for children. Now they decided to remove the playgrounds because there are not so many young children, but to have equipment for people, fitness equipment, because there are more older people in the park than younger people. And of course, older people, the problem is the chronic diseases. That's a problem. Those people are very expensive. And if you wait till you detect a disease, it's too late, because it's not only too late for the person, but it's a very expensive system. If you can detect in an early phase that there is something going wrong, maybe you can cure it. That's a joke, but I put the good Portuguese translation on it. It's correct? Not too many mistakes. Now, if you look at the size of, for instance, a tennis ball down to a virus, if you look at the dimension, and you look at the dimension of transistors, of a chip, then you see that the devices are becoming smaller and smaller. And we are now going to nanometer technology. We are speaking about language of 10 nanometer. We are coming here. That means that our devices are getting the same dimensions as viruses, antibodies, that type of things. That means that we can use those type of microelectronic devices in order to do an analysis of those cells. There are now microelectronic devices under development to analyze cancer. If you have cancer cells, you have to detect them, but you have to detect cells at the rate of 10 million devices per minute. 10 million cells, and there are only a few cells in it which will indicate that you have a problem with cancer. So microelectronic devices now are able to do that. You can do artificial synapses. That means you can have a microelectronic circuit, something like you have been calculating earlier this morning, a little bit more complex, and you can put neurons on it. And they are interacting, the neurons are interacting with the electronics. And that's going to give you information about how neurons are operating. And that can be used to cure some of the diseases. So that work is also going on at IMEC. Not human neurons, not yet. We are doing it with animals. But that's the type of work, for instance, that people are doing now to get insight into, for instance, Alzheimer. Serious problem, Alzheimer. People now, the doctors want to know more about where is it coming from, how is it functioning in the brain, and with that type of analysis you can get information. So that means in the medical world, from analysis in the laboratory, if you go to a doctor and they want a blood analysis, they are taking a few centiliters of blood, and then it's going to a laboratory, and then maybe 2 days later you get the results. Well, that can be done with a small system that you can put in the office of the doctor. The doctor can do the analysis. But we even go a step further. You can have a small device which you bring close to your smartphone. Smartphone device, it's not connected, it's wireless. And here you analyze a droplet of your blood. There's a small system with a needle, and you need only one droplet. And that droplet is analyzed by the system and sending information to your smartphone. And the smartphone is then sending to your computer and step further to your doctor. So these are type of devices. And that's now under development. There is a new company, a spin-off company, with an amount of 80 million euros to develop that. All the components have already been optimized. The system the feasibility has been demonstrated. Now we only have to bring it into a real commercial product. But you can understand that the price of that device must be very low, because it must be disposable. You can only use it once, then you have to throw it away. Otherwise there is cross-contamination. And that type of device, you have to adjust that for the parameter that you want to analyze. Do you want to have a blood analysis? Do you want glucose analysis? Do you want to analyze another parameter? So that's why this type of device should come on the market, we believe, with a price maximum $10. The lower the better. But that's very important, because then you can do analysis everywhere in the world.
It's 2015. This is John. John is 42 years old and has a stressful job. Like most people with a busy lifestyle, John doesn't take the time to exercise regularly and eat healthily. For the past year, John has kept a close eye on his health. He systematically checks his blood values using a small chip that connects wirelessly to his smartphone. A wide range of tests is available, from a general blood test to a heart check to more specific measurements such as vitamin D. The test is cheap, fast, easy to use, and the size of an SD card. When the top of the card is removed, a tiny painless needle is revealed. John uses this needle to prick his fingertip, which draws a tiny amount of blood into the microchannels integrated on the chip. The blood sample is guided through a sequence of steps that measure relevant biomarkers. Proteins are measured by selectively capturing them onto a surface. Metabolites are detected through enzymatic conversion. DNA and RNA are analyzed by first amplifying the number of molecules. In addition, on-chip microscopy provides high-resolution images of cells. Just a couple of minutes later, the analysis is complete. The results are transmitted wirelessly to John's smartphone, giving him an immediate overview of his current physical condition. Since 3 out of 7 important parameters are out of range, John is a bit worried. He sends the test results immediately to his doctor. Dr. Owens has kept close track of John's physical status. After looking into the details of the test, the doctor calls John to discuss the results of the test.
So that's an example of what you can do, and those are different types of devices. They are not yet on the market, but we are very close to it. And that's for blood check, that's for heart check, vitamin check, whatever you want. And you can use that everywhere in the world. And I had discussions with Phil Cruz here in Brazil, and they say it would be wonderful if you can bring a device like that, because then you can bring it to remote areas. It's amazing, but even in remote areas, people have a smartphone. That's the evolution. They have a smartphone, but they don't have a clinic. Or very remote, far, far away. So with that type of devices, you can distribute it and they can do analysis. And if needed, the doctors can come over. So there are a lot of applications for it. So microelectronics is enabling disruptive innovation. Disruptive means it's not the normal evolution, but you do something, you step forwards. And now, for instance, if you buy a new smartphone, there's a continuous evolution. If you buy a 6 or a 7 or an 8 version, small evolutions. Disruptive means a huge step forwards. And that's what's happening now in healthcare. You can even personalize the medication that people are using. Health is a combination of genetics. Nothing you can do to that. Hopefully, we are not going to do anything to that. Another nice discussion point, the environment where you're living and the way you're living. And now more and more people are concerned about the way they are living. So a lot of those devices are needed because they have a medical problem. Okay, that's very good. But a huge market, an increasing market, are people who say, no, I want to control the way I'm living. I want to be sure that I'm not going to suffer from one of those diseases. I know people who walk every day 10,000 steps. If they don't do that, they don't feel happy. I know it's this. Some people are measuring their blood every day. So you can have different type of watches. There's an example that was developed by Samsung and IMEC. And therefore it's called SimBand. It's a watch, you can buy it, it's a commercial product. It's measuring your heart rate, your blood pressure, your ECG, the bioimpedance, the skin. The receptivity of your skin is giving information on the stress. And there's a very nice program on television in Belgium, because IMEC has been working on it, where people are answering questions, and at the same time the stress is monitored. And measure the temperature, of course. Huh? And forgot, you can also measure the time with it. Huh? It's a very useful device. When it came on the market, the CEO of Samsung said it's a powerful device, because now in the morning I look at my watch and I'm aware that I'm still alive. because the heartbeat is okay. You have different type of patches. Now I forgot the Portuguese word for it. It's something you stick onto your body, yeah, like here. Something like that. Huh? Like a tattoo. And also there you can measure different type of parameters. And that must be very comfortable. And of course wireless. Huh? You don't want wireless going to power sources. So it must consume very low power. No batteries. You don't want to walk around with batteries. And that's on the market for different type of applications. That's also something that was developed at IMEC. And I know there are not too many ladies here, but there's a spin-off company, Bloom Technology, who develop a type of patch for pregnant ladies where they can measure contractions, the frequency, the duration, the intensity. And in order of that, by doing that, you know whether or not you have to go to the clinic urgently or not. Very often now, the ladies are calling their husband and say, well, I think it's time that we go to the clinic. The husband is coming from his work in a hurry, and then he found out that it was not needed. So that's a commercial product on the market. It's a company in Belgium and in California. It's a type of patch. You can do EEG for the brain. You can do the monitoring. Now this is very quite complex. You're already afraid if they tell you that they will do something like that. So IMEC has been working on a type of headset. That was the first version. Very simple. Here is a later version. And it can be used for different types of applications. It can improve traffic safety. If you have a truck driver with something like that, very often truck drivers are falling asleep because they are driving too long. And a truck driver falling asleep for 20 seconds means a serious accident. The number of accidents is enormous nowadays. With that type of device, there is a warning before the driver is falling asleep. That's one practical application. Of course, you can do it for gaming. You can do it for e-learning. You can also do it for epilepsy. That in advance, you know epilepsy? I don't know the... Okay. It's very dangerous. If you get it on the street, at the wrong place, it's killing you. In that way, in advance, you know when you're going to get an attack. You can take care of that. So a lot of type of applications. Different shapes, and now that's still not nice. Now it's something like a cap. You can buy it. It's a company in Switzerland, bring it on the market. We are working there with neuroprobes, probes going into the brain, like needles. But the special thing is that at the end of the needle, there is microelectronics. There are devices measuring the functioning of your brain. Quite important for all those applications is what we call thin film or flexible electronics. A normal device, a chip on silicon, you cannot bend that. Yeah, you can do it once, but then it's broken. So you want to have it on a flexible type of plastic material. And that's a type of plastic foil where you see a microelectronic circuit. It's printed. It's a low-cost technology. That's quite important. And it's stretchable. So if you stretch it, the properties remain the same. That's important. Huh? And for watches and things like that, you need it. Also for your patches, they must be flexible. That's an example. For instance, you want to buy a shirt, a very expensive one, but you want to be sure it's a real one. It's not a fake one that you can buy in Asia for 10% of the price. Well, here you pay a high price. So you can put a label in it. And now with your smartphone, you can see whether it's a real Dior or whatever. You can do the same thing, and that's done already, on the medicines. On the medicine, you can put a small RFID device, and then you can do a scanning, and then you know whether that pill is for you or not. If you take a wrong pill, your mobile will give you a warning. Very important in hospitals. And in Leuven, in Belgium, they are using that already. When the nurse is coming to give the pills to the patients, they are doing analysis of the code on the risk, and they do an analysis of the pills. And you can do a lot of things with flexible electronics. There are many, many applications. So it's a very useful technology, but different from the classical microelectronics technology. Yeah, that was the old days, electrocardiogram. Also that can be done in an easier way now. A last topic I want to mention very briefly are photovoltaics. I didn't mention energy, but photovoltaics is very, very important. There has been a problem, a crisis, a couple of years ago for two reasons. First reason was that there was an overproduction. China wanted to capture the market, and they did an overproduction, so that the price went down, and a lot of the companies disappeared from the market. Even the Chinese companies had to disappear. And the second point is that the government was no longer subsidizing it. In the beginning, many governments, in Europe at least, were giving a bonus if you were using photovoltaics. And in that way, it became affordable. Now they don't do that anymore, they're subsidizing. So by 2020, 1 terawatt PV, 5% of the world energy will be with solar cells. The only thing is you have to implement it in a nice way. To be honest, personally, I don't like those panels. I don't like them on the roof of a house. It's not nice. And there are safety problems. One of the first safety problems was that if you have a fire, if you have fire in the house, nothing to do with the solar cell. If you have fire in the house, the water is not going through the panels. So now they are trying to solve that problem. You can use it for many applications. That's a real picture. Huh? It's coming out of the newspaper 3 weeks ago, somewhere in Africa. I don't know why they did the energy inside, but okay. Maybe for a television, who knows. Huh? That's another nice application. The cooling boxes for cool water. You can do that with a panel. This is a picture that I've taken myself when I was walking around in Singapore. In Singapore, you find those type of systems with solar cells, and that's giving cooling. If you sit here, I should have taken a little bit lower, you can sit on the bank, and you get cool air coming over you. That's another example where you have solar cell panels. So you have many, many different types of applications. That's the latest one, and that's very important. I mentioned that the panels are not too nice, in my opinion, but that's the way to go. This is not the classical silicon, and there are many different types of silicon-based or semiconductor material-based solar cells. This is using organic material, and the organic material have two main benefits. Benefit is that you can have it in different colors, and you can make it flexible. That means you can make the panel the shape of your building. You can imagine for an architect, it's enormous what you can do with that. Huh? That's a benefit. The drawback, there's also a negative point, is the efficiency. The efficiency of those type of cells is around the best that you can do is around 10%, which is a little bit too low. You need high efficiency and long lifetime for the cost. Because the lower the efficiency, the longer the time before you get the return of your investment when you install it. So there are exciting challenges on the horizon. That means there's an increased functionality. More and more solutions, innovative solutions will be needed. We are coming to engineering for a body, technology in the human sphere. And the examples I've been giving are very important for companies. A lot of small, new companies are starting up now, working on those type of devices because there's a market. To make those type of devices, you don't need huge manufacturing plants. If you want to build semiconductor devices, you need an investment between $3 and $5 billion. This you can do low cost, especially if you go to the flexible type of materials. And we are converging different technologies. That means we are entering a transdisciplinary world. So that means, that's quite important. That's why I'm glad that Professor Martino is here. It's quite important that the training of the students is going to change. Training 100% electronic engineers has many, many limitations. You should be more interdisciplinary. The engineer of the future, well, even today already, not the future, should have a good knowledge of different disciplines. Of course, electrical engineering, but also maybe some bioengineering, maybe also some chemistry. If you look at IMEC, the Microelectronics Center, the number of electronic engineers working there is not that large. We have many different disciplines because you're coming to a new world. We are working with a lot of different types of materials, different approaches. And that should be taken into account into the training of the students. In Belgium, we are now trying to do that. So that means there will be a combination, a merger of techno courses. You will have computer science, nanotechnology, life sciences. All that will interact with each other in order to come up with the new type of devices, the devices needed for the future. And I have one concluding slide, so I'm good on time. I'm maybe watching my time. It's very nice what I've been presenting, and maybe say, oh, is the future? I don't believe in that. No, believe in it. Because already in 1991, Mark Weiser was saying the most profound technologies are those that disappear. They weave themselves into the fabric of everyday life until they are indistinguishable from them. That means you are becoming so used to the new technology. It's a part of your life that you don't realize that you're using it. Can you imagine that I would tell you that we are going to take away internet? I think you say I cannot live anymore without internet. Your smartphone is a normal part of your life. For people growing up, when they are small, they play already with it. So it's different from the evolution in the past. If you go back 70 years ago, evolution was step by step, small. You got first the television coming on the market, and then you got people dreaming of a mobile phone, which was very large. And it took 10 years before a new device came up. Now, every year there are new type of devices, new type of applications, and you use them automatically. So that means Internet of Things. You will not be aware that you're relying on Internet of Things, that a lot of things in your life will be done automatically without that you have any control over it. Thank you.